This story will cover from then to now and next, all about change, how to turn losers into winners.
Do you ever get that feeling you're not wanted? Isn't there something rather unfriendly about this place? Dangerous even. These don't look terribly dangerous. There are barriers everywhere, even sentry boxes, and lots of security men, and lots of giraffes. So what's going on here at Lake Naivasha in Kenya? It's good news for giraffes, but only up to a point. Or why did the zebra cross the road at a zebra crossing? Man might be more dangerous than the animals, and not just on the road. This story is a microcosm of the natural world today. People and wildlife, the consumer and the consumed, and the planet's lifeblood, water. It's a glimpse of our footprint on the Earth. This is one of the most spectacular places on planet Earth, visible, they tell us, from space. The Great Rift Valley in Africa. Stretching thousands of miles from Ethiopia in the north to Mozambique in the south. Here in Kenya, you can reach a small bit of it at Hell's Gate National Park, as expected by vehicle. But also by bike, perhaps risking aggressive buffaloes by those famous cliffs, or even on a walking safari. It's hot and dry, and on their nesting cliffs, the vultures will soon be ready for takeoff. An augur buzzard is already on the move. He will be our aerial guide on our safari. The vultures can cover huge distances when conditions are right, using thermals, rising columns of hot, dry air. They can scan this rugged landscape for the dead or dying, a vital service for this place where the tropical sun is claiming many victims. A dead male giraffe. Probably died of thirst or lack of green food. For our story, we'll imagine the future of his mate. We'll suggest how she may survive the drought and how man will both help and hinder her on her journey. A safari of many real surprises. Hyenas benefit from the drought too. They're laughing all the way to the carcass. There's a pecking order and a feeding order amongst the variously equipped species. Big beak, long bare neck for breaking and reaching in, or at the other end of the scale, little beak for cleaning up round the edges, like a hooded vulture does. The end of a life, the start of a bid for survival by his mate. The thirsty animals, those that survive, are on the move, pausing only for a quick dust-up before heading for the first surprise. She may look at those tempting green acacia leaves, but they're hardly enough to satisfy a hungry and thirsty giraffe. She's high and dry. Lower down, it's a bit greener, but there may be a surprising reason for this. The restless volcanic scene that is the Rift Valley hides a powerful energy source for man. Much of Kenya's electricity comes from huge geothermal forces in the rocks below, turning vital water into steam that greens the place locally. This green landscape may look appetizing to the migrating herds, but after the quiet protection of Hell's Gate National Park, this is hardly a welcoming spot. From a giraffe's point of view, this is a challenge. Should she turn back to drought and perhaps die like her mate, or press on through this alien barrier with its wires, fences and pipes, and with further difficulties in the distance? Our pair of auger buzzards can use local vantage points for hunting, or fly over it all with ease. A buzzard's point of view reveals the hazards ahead for those below, heading for real water, peace, and green food. A new feature is an apparently endless covering of glass or plastic. Greenhouses. Only a small gap is visible between the horticultural spread, effectively a desert to a giraffe. That corridor is where they are now being squeezed, hence freshly squeezed giraffe. The corridor is a stretch of original bush, allowing the passage of the thirsty and hungry immigrants from dry Hell's Gate, heading towards those distant lakes. But will they make it? Their journey will take them from the geothermal hurdle between the ever-expanding flower farms towards a lake with a strange taste, as they may find out. And they don't go unnoticed. Are the natives friendly? Yes, they are. These zebras are effectively passing through their back garden, complete with ever-watching auger buzzard from the tree above. Next, in this strange place, in the queue, a single Congoni is watchful too. And here comes a warthog through the dust and the dryness, followed by a small dust devil, and a rather larger one. It's behind you. A small road passes through the corridor, not across it, towards the lake, and is not much of a hazard for our passing giraffe. What is, though, is the impact of thousands of people and their needs. Not visible here, except in the form of all those greenhouses on the way to the lake. Could this be ominous? Actually, the main threat here is lack of water for the wildlife, and to some extent for the cattle and sheep, which are the lifeblood, literally, as the Maasai drink the blood and the milk, as they always have done. Vervet monkeys are clever opportunists, but even they don't seem to be able to turn the tap on. Their bigger relatives, baboons, have found a useful source, food and drink, in the fleshy euphorbia tree. Down below, the migration continues in the form of walking birds, guinea fowl, through what is now almost a desert. Except here. A few green oases are groomed for a select few people, and that may also include zebras or giraffes, or the doubtfully cute marabou storks for that matter, rather on the dry side of the fence. A major flower farm around the corridor has its own use of precious water. It has created the corridor for the giraffes and much else, and also a waterhole by the lawn as an attraction to its special guests, which could include a rather big one. Amazingly, a hippo has chosen to walk up from the lake to Assyrian's hippo spa. Now he's heading back through a very hippo-unfriendly landscape. It may not be terribly giraffe-friendly either. There seem to be signs everywhere. La Piève Limited is part of Assyrian, responsible for the wildlife and tourism, and fences, and barriers, with local lady attached. People poach, use snares, eat giraffes, don't they? Not here, it seems. They don't. But try not to get electrocuted. There are more and more signs, the written sort, as well as clues to more and more people. Some have electricity. Some don't, but they can have an awful lot of animals. And that's a lot of thirst in a lot of dust. More fences, more signs. And what's that behind them? She's getting closer. They're all getting closer. The giraffes, the zebras. From desert to dead tree with blue and pink behind, plus augur buzzard, of course. So close, but yet so far. Between the giraffes and the lake and its flamingos is, possibly, a big problem. It's a couple of kilometres across the corridor, and it's busy. A road. What were once fields of flowers and vegetables now form a Syrian's corridor, a good hunting ground for an augur buzzard. But how safe is it? From her point of view, this is a new experience. The sign says, "Please drive slowly." Impalas are speedy jumpers. Giraffes are not. Quiet bikes are one thing. But even tough baboons can panic, and a cyclist has to swerve. Loud horns. Lights blazing on a well-loaded bus. Man on a roll. Furniture delivery. It's enough to break up a family. Fortunately, a giraffe, especially a young one, can be quite speedy. A zebra crossing. Exactly. Most careful drivers respect the pedestrians. But big noisy lorries use the roads day and night. Osirian is one of the biggest flower growers around Lake Naivasha, and their lorries take thousands of roses, carnations, and also vegetables to Nairobi Airport for export by air, 5,000 notorious air miles away. Osirian have provided this wildlife corridor, but how does flower growing here balance with the impact on the place itself? So much for Zebra's Crossing. This international industry is under increasing pressure to justify its existence. The corridor helps. Our giraffe is an ambassador. Fair trade helps, but schools and healthcare are only part of the solution. There's much more to it than that. Increasing numbers of the traditional landowning, they say, Maasai, and their animals cross the dry land, heading for the water of the lakes. So they've become part of the road traffic. It's mass migration on which all their lives depend. Like the wires, it's a new sight for our giraffe, coming from a national park where such herds are not supposed to go. These wild animals are walking into a changing world, and the pressures on them are increasingly complex. Once they were free to roam, no signs, no corridors, no squeezed giraffes or warthogs. But here, around Lake Naivasha, people pressure has increased because of an apparently insatiable demand from far, far away. From Europe and the rest of the world. The extremes of expensive 4x4s to the frequent breakdowns of worn-out minibuses or matatus along the road show the problem Assyrian faces. It employs thousands of workers, many from other parts of Kenya. The birth rate and more friends and relatives coming for work adds to the problem. If the business collapsed, it would be a human crisis, and it could. And the dry and dusty corridor into which this mother warthog reverses so nimbly is a clue to the fate of Assyrian and all the other flower farms at Lake Naivasha. But at the moment, they don't really face up to the main problem, and the corridor looks good. This Kongoni is stepping neatly along a speed bump, an extra corridor facility. He was last seen back amongst the steam of the geothermal power station. The African equivalent of a sleeping policeman works well here. Is it possible a giraffe uses the signs? From up here she'll wait and watch, and carry on chewing, with Impala on the other side. More chewing. This is a relaxed spot, eating and strolling at the zebra crossing. And licking salt when school's over for the day. A day in the life of a speed bump is seldom dull, whether it's flip-flops, tyres or hooves. This is a busy mini corridor in the corridor. But all the speed bumps and protective signs in the world will not ease the squeeze on the giraffe as she heads on to a very different place in the road. Hatari on the sign is Swahili for danger. Road traffic may be a problem, but beyond the woodland is a much bigger one, as the augur buzzard will see later. In the meantime, he searches the band of acacia trees along the lakeshore. Down there, our giraffe is also checking the trees for height. These characteristic yellow-barked acacias offer all sorts of opportunities, if she can reach them. Yes, she can. In competition with other leaf-eaters, she is way above them. Size, i.e. height, really matters with a giraffe. It's an extraordinary tower of an animal. Surprisingly, giraffes have the same number of neck vertebrae as humans, and a much higher blood pressure to push the blood up there. In this beautiful woodland, giraffes flourish. They have virtually no problems in this leafy part of the corridor. No predators to speak of, very little poaching. Except for one major problem, as we'll see. And it is a big one. There are also some introduced Australian eucalyptus amongst the acacia. Thirsty trees in a country that needs all the water it can hold on to. Forests, in the rain, act as sponges, the soil below holding and releasing water later on. Up there is a clever extension that really does the business. A long tongue that can prise the smallest, tenderest leaves from amongst the meanest, sharpest thorns. In other words, the acacia's defence only partly works. Somehow, eyes and nose can cope. Thorns are the acacia's attempt at protection, but when a herd of hungry giraffes hits town, these trees can really get a chewing. tongue and teeth strip. This can kill a tree, hardly a good long-term investment by the giraffes. But in the past, there were a lot more trees around here. Acacias are used by man, but also by a myriad of creatures in a myriad of ways. When bits of them die, lovebirds line their nest holes with their twigs. A colobus monkey with its white baby. Not quite at the leaf-eating age, perhaps. Their larger cousins work the bark for ants and termites. Some small creatures, new to science, are still being discovered in the yellow cathedrals of the acacia woodland. A place to play. A place to dream of other things than ants and termites and bark. Another primate, a vervet monkey, may find life in a dead tree. In due course, it will fall and be recycled by the natural system, enriching the soil, but more help is needed. In the dryness, what hoglets drink, while she is intrigued by something a little different. It's part of a replanting scheme by Lapiev, part of Assyrian. Another chance for a drink. They have planted, protected, and most importantly, watered these young native trees, so needed by the wildlife, including our tree-nesting auger buzzard. This is a promising effort. The saplings will keep on growing if they do get water, or don't get eaten or dug up by a passing warthog. Or a passing baboon for that matter. Lapiev is partly a farm, sheltered by the acacia woodland, excellent warthog and giraffe country, with quality cattle and watered grass. Oh, and donkeys too. There are posher kinds of horses too, well cared for by Lapiev Farm. These sheep are not so lucky. They are taken wherever the rain may fall, and it's increasingly failing, not falling in Kenya. Their owners, the once proud Maasai, with their future at stake, are now competing for water and the lakeshore access to it. Some of their animals have died in irrigation channels dug and extended desperately by the flower farmers to reach into the lake as its level drops. Assyrian claim to look after their workers particularly well, and that is why say Waitrose, a leading supermarket and part of John Lewis in the UK, that they import flowers from Assyrian. It's baboon rush hour too. Assyrian employs a whole army of security staff, and it protects its territory as if it were a small country. Baboons are an additional threat in this job. People here may earn only a few dollars a day. Many are unemployed, resulting in crime. The profits for the flower farms and the British supermarkets comes from the work of thousands of Africans who live on simple food in basic conditions, along with their animals. Behind them is the industry that is squeezing our giraffe and the houses of, usually, European managers. Fair trade helps. Workers' houses? Yes. Water? No. One company has moved on to take more cheap water from another wetland somewhere else. Osirian, with its better record, still shifts millions of flowers, effectively exporting thousands of tons of virtual water a year taken from Lake Naivasha. That is what Waitrose imports. Is it the best use of Kenya's precious water? You have to ask. The good news is that Assyrian helps giraffes and gives their wealthy tourist clients a good time too. It's over here. Oh, come back. There'll be another one along in a minute, just like it says on the sign. But did they spot the eagle? And that auger buzzard again. And what's this? Why the excitement? Why are the zebras running? Even the giraffes. That's why. As the next Assyrian clients fly in, it's a buzzard's eye view of the woodland, the lakeshore, and an awful lot of pink things. And a few brown blobs in the water. The clients, the flamingos, and the hippos, and the greenhouses, they all depend on it. From the shore or from the air, clients get a good view of the lake and a single giraffe. A first surprise is the hippo that's made it from the inland waterhole by the lodge. It seems they both got a surprise. Hippos can be dangerous. There's quite a crowd watching the small game on the other side. The giraffe are on private Assyrian land. These locals are from the village of Kongoni on public land. Over there, the zebras and giraffes are not disturbed. The flamingos simply don't care. Here at Lake Aloydian is a flamingo paradise, but there are very few other species of waterbirds. There used to be, but as the level drops, this soda lake becomes more and more concentrated, which is great for flamingos and their food of algae, but not much else. Their numbers vary enormously as they move around various Rift Valley lakes, now only puddles in a changing climate in a long history of change. Aloydian used to be part of nearby Lake Naivasha, but now land separates them, adorned by a kind of pagoda, a legacy of the good or somewhat notorious, wicked old colonial days. This area supports the biggest concentration of fish eagles in Africa. The food chain connects the algae with the flamingos, which filter it, with that amazing beak, through to the fish eagles. Their population has carefully been studied for many years, an important indicator for the health of the two lakes on which so much of the life, human, plant and animal, depends. And that means water, whether you're a flower farmer, a fish eagle, a flamingo or a butterfly, or a local African. In Swahili, water is maji, as the song says. Unfortunately though, this water is a soda lake. Aloydian attracts flamingos. It's not so good for giraffes. And here's another surprise for her. Joining the now familiar flamingos are some more dazzling colours. It's black and white and matching pink. An extra guest or two. A local wedding on Osiria's part of the lake. On the other public side of the lake, the Maasai are allowed onto the green sward with access to water, which cattle will drink. Some say water is becoming a more valuable resource than oil worldwide and a likely cause of conflict. Here in Kenya, every drop counts for someone, something, somewhere. As the lake recedes, so do the hopes for a satisfactory coexistence. Caught up in this will be the wildlife, whose needs will hardly be a priority if trouble starts.
And from down there, pumped up that extraordinary neck, with just 7 vertebrae, the same number as humans, but much bigger, of course. Right now it's good news. A milk supply for a new giraffe, rather miraculously emerged from its extra tall mother, who bends her extreme neck to do a bit of cleaning up. The tick birds watch. The calf crumbles. The tick birds leave. The neighbours notice. They're alarmed. So are the zebra and impala. And of course, so is the mother. So it goes, and very sad when you consider global giraffe populations are down by 38% in the last 30 years. Watch part 2 for an update on the world of giraffes.